Today's episode is brought to you by 5Line Designs. Bring your brand to light with 5Line at fivelinedesigns.com. Here at 5Line, we like to ask, what can we do for you? We're here to help you and your business grow from all angles. Whether it's building the voice of your brand, redesigning your assets, or building out a website, 5Line is here to help you step your game up and beat out the competition. No matter what stage you're in, whether you're just starting or you've been up and running for many years, make your next move your best move by working with 5Line. You won't regret it. Schedule a meeting to see what we can do for you today at fivelinedesigns.com. Welcome to the Business Grind, where we give you an inside perspective on what it takes to start, build, and run a successful business. Here are your hosts, Danny Shaw and Sean Michael Wellington.
All right, hello to everyone in podcast land today. Thanks for joining us. Sean, how are you feeling?
Feeling good and a little interested in your opinion on our book review today.
Indeed. All right, well, that's why we're recording, right? That's why we're doing it, to do that. So yes, let's get into it. So to everyone out there, for today's episode, we will be doing a book review on the 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. He's a writer, educational activist, as he calls himself, and an entrepreneur, right? So it's called the 4-Hour Workweek. This book came out, if I'm not mistaken, this came out a while ago. Maybe the first run was around 2007, right? So we're doing a book review on that today. We're going to tell you, our opinions, our thoughts, some key takeaways, and, just how it can apply to you in your journey as an entrepreneur as well. Where would we like to begin, just as in regards to starting off this book review? I know, Sean, you had recommended the book, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Did I? I mean, it was probably so long ago that I forgot I recommended it.
Yeah.
But I knew the premise was always interesting to me. And, I always think that these book titles of course, hyperboles of what they're trying to teach you. So I never thought that it would be literally a 4-hour work week, but it was probably some sort of book on efficiency and time management.
Right.
But upon reading it, it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It was more. It was a lot more radical than I thought it was going to be. Put it that way. So going into it and seeing the ideas, it wasn't steps and ways to improve your efficiency every day. It was not upend your whole lifestyle or your whole work lifestyle. Maybe not your personal lifestyle as much, but your whole work culture. Yeah, just upend your whole work culture. That's what it's telling you to do essentially. Right. So. Which is not really reasonable for everybody, but I appreciate the ambition of this book. I'll say that.
Fair. So I think we were just brainstorming on business books to read and review for the episode, and this book was, if you're into business books and things of that nature, I remember when this was the wave for a minute. For a minute, this was the wave. Everyone was talking about this book.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I must have missed that whole wave because I'm I had no context with this book. I just went off the title.
Okay. And yes, the title is it can be very appealing, right? To get you going by with the title. I only have to work 4 hours a week and things of that nature. Let me read it and figure what's going on. I will say, before we get into it, just for my opinion is that I don't know if this is technically a business book, maybe more like a self-help book that you can apply to your life if you're trying to start a business or leave your current work environment. Would you agree?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking after I was when I was into it. It was this is more self-help book than a business book.
Right.
But obviously it's all centered around your work culture and your and your business and or your career. So
right.
Inherently, there's business related, but it's definitely more of a self-help book. Yeah.
All right.
Which I didn't know. So.
All right. So for sure. So let's just get into it. You came out the gate. You said it was very radical than what you expected. Let's talk about that.
Well, all right. So what's your rating on this book here? And I'm not going to do the movie thing,
right.
But is it a yes, I'd recommend this, or no, I don't think it's necessarily worth you reading?
I think you have to be a certain type of person for me to recommend this book to you.
What type of person is
I
that?
think you have to be I wouldn't recommend this book for new entrepreneurs or budding people, budding freelancers. I think this book is really for people who are ready to make drastic 180 changes in their life, starting tomorrow. and said, forget it, let's go, right? I wouldn't recommend this to someone who's just coming into the game and trying to figure out how to start a business. I wouldn't. I enjoyed the book. There were certain parts which I'll get into, which I was like, I guess not really for me. I enjoyed a lot of it. I think you have to have a very specific type of personality and perspective to even absorb this and really put it into play.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have a full rating, but it's like I would recommend if you are X type of person.
It was kind of a turn off for me not knowing this was a self-help book, hearing his backstory in the first couple of chapters and all these examples. And I understand from an author's perspective, you have to qualify who you are and why you're talking about the subject you're talking about. But the opening kind of dragged for me, hearing about his businesses and his learnings and things of that nature. Not for nothing, if anything, is stuff we've already discussed ourselves on the show. You know what I mean? So it's like I was kind of waiting to get to the meat of it, what to catch. But when we finally did get there, I just thought it was a lot of radical concepts, and some of them I really like. One thing, and I'll just get into example. Hope you don't mind me skipping around a little bit.
Go for it. Jump around. Yeah, because he jumps around.
That's true too. He'll start a concept and then be like, "But I'll tell you about that later." Just tell me now. I don't need to hear. But so the thing about only having email twice a day, I like that idea. I really do like that idea, and I think it's doable for a lot of people. It's just we're culturally not allowed to do it or not encouraged to do something like that. But why the hell not? Like, especially in a remote world that we in right now, like we get a lot of the book was about setting up a remote situation, which you know a lot of us have that covered now. Thanks to COVID, anyway. So that was interesting. But yeah, that was my thought. Is that the email specifically that piece of advice? I think that's something that there's some merit to that. Maybe not exactly how he described it, but having set times where people can get in contact with you. Because again, like he made it illustrated in the book, is that most of our time wasted is responding to people and stuff like that.
And so that's a great point. I mean, before I'm going to speak personally about my experiences recently with work and clients and things like that. I used to, and I still do, so it's not like I'm totally reformed, but I used to keep a tab open of just my Gmail. And every so often, check it, work email open. You know what I mean? Like, you just have these things open in general, right? So you go and peek, and it's kind of like you're waiting for something to come in. And I would say within the last few months, I've gotten better. Not totally there yet, but where I don't have it open. Like, I check it at specific times to say, okay, let me do my work. Let me do what I need to do. Let me get on with life. Check in every few hours just to see what has accumulated and bang it all out and then rinse and repeat, as opposed to just allowing those minor, or I don't say minor, but they are distractions, right? And usually I would totally agree with what he said. It's not of super major importance. I said this before I've read his book. I've never gotten a high priority email that was truly high priority. You know what I mean? So, with that, I totally agree, and I've personally have tried to implement that for a few months now. So it was good to kind of see him speaking on the benefits of that in this book. So totally took that into consideration. Appreciated that. Yeah.
And what I liked about it was like the specific times he mentioned, right? I think it was like 11 o'clock and was it 2 o'clock? Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly, but it was basically you have a before lunchtime and an after lunchtime, and I just like that because I feel like he's right. These are the two times of the day where you're getting the most influx and you're gonna get the most response also. So it's like everything else is kind of fluff and the stuff that distracts you from whatever your main job is, so or your main goal is. So I did appreciate that for that reason too.
No, definitely, for sure. Now, I will say some of the tactics that and strategies that he mentions and recommends on how to get there to train, quote unquote, train your other colleagues, coworkers, employees on how to kind of respect that email time and wishes. That's where we get into the radical side of things, I think. He was giving templated responses and, it's very wordy on how, just to kind of train people to know not to email you at a certain time. Personally, I was like, that seems a bit much. I don't know. It seemed a bit much, but also I think we also need to make caveat or asterisk next to this. This was written in 2007, so take it for what you will in regards to dating. It could be a little dated, right? I don't think, everything is not going to hold up after it's been over 10 years, right? So 15 years, so some things. But I just felt like, I don't really think the method in regards to training people that you work with to respect that time is really needed or warranted. Either you're going to answer these emails when I get to it, or I don't. That's kind of my...
Yeah, I mean, and then that's the mentality I bring into it too. Right. And he's basically saying that, but giving you like a politically correct way of responding to people and setting it up. So.
I'll give him that. He's giving you an out for people whose personality may not lend itself to that, to be as bold to just say, I'm not answering an email to this time and leave me alone. He does give some options. I just feel like the options he's providing actually leaves room for more drama than needed, right? It's like, and especially now we have email, we have Slacks, we have Zoom and things of that nature. So people who don't email you, they're going to Zoom you, they're going to do something else. So I think for me, it's more about being a master of your domain and holding true. It can be very hard to hold that line, but to create those boundaries, like I'm going to work, I'm doing my work. I will respond accordingly when I get to your stuff, kind of like that mantra of, just because it's an emergency for you doesn't mean it's an emergency for me. Right. Scenario, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right, we'll give them that on the email around emailing, right? Well, you had some. What was the other radical items that you picked up on? And
I guess it's not so radical, but it's just something different that I've never heard of. And it's kind of in the same vein of time management. He had the note that he was getting bombarded with so many minor requests that he was the stopgap for everything. So he had this mandate to his employees. He was like, any problems under $100, you can handle that on your own. If it's over $100, then you contact me. And then he empowered his staff to handle everything with the budget of $100 or under or whatever it was. And like, then he would notice how much less he stopped getting, inundated with these emails and these small requests. So I thought that was another good piece of advice that was applicable. It's like, yeah, you empower your team with an actual budget. Granted, that's $100 doesn't mean much, but it's still like, okay, I'm doing, you see the value in what you're doing. You see it as a financial, like a real dollar sign next to it. So I thought that was a cool idea, and I never heard of something like that. So.
I actually, I like that, and I picked up on it. I think to me that was when I got to that part, it was kind of a continuation of things that I've heard and had to implement on my own recently, which is not being the bottleneck. You can't do everything on your own. You might think that, from a business owner's perspective, you're looking at costs and trying to keep costs down. Like, oh, I'm going to do this because I got to pay this person $50. I got to pay this person $100 and X, Y, and Z. And realizing that while you are keeping a few of those coins, your time is being wasted. Right. And
how much more valuable is your time to the business?
And your time is more valuable, is the ultimate value, which is a personal lesson that I have really been trying to implement more within the last few years, prioritizing time over money, right? I save $100, but at what cost? If at working 8 hours when someone else was willing to do it and had that same time and can do it for, you know what I mean? So I really, really like that part on how he tries to really show the emphasis of time over money and not allowing yourself to be the bottleneck. You think you're winning because you saved a few coins, but you're really not,
Going along that lines, then his philosophy, I guess, on retirement, right? What did you think of that?
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I'm just curious. I thought that was a little radical because I've never heard it described that way. It's like, retirement's a goal for a lot of people.
Yes. One, I love it. Two, I'm living it. I'm trying to live it right now. So, and to the audience who may not be aware, let's just have a little context on his thoughts on retirement. His thoughts on retirement is, basically we work, we come out of college or educate, and maybe wherever you're coming from, we enter the workforce, however you get into the workforce, and you spend close to 40 years squirreling away money to then enjoy the last 30 years, hopefully, of your life, right? in retirement, right? And you're doing all of this for the 40 years or however you're employed. But during that time of 40 years, you're not doing anything. You don't really get to travel. You don't really get to enjoy life. You're literally working. It's very rote, very routine. And by the time you get to that certain age, you're too old to kind of enjoy it. It doesn't really impact as much. And now you're trying to play catch up and things of that nature. And you're playing a game that has been created by people in these rules that when you step back and realize, it's like, well, why am I playing that game in the first place if it doesn't really apply to me or work for me, right? And his approach is, instead of waiting 30 years to retire, you can quote unquote live in retirement now, more like a hybrid of working and vacation and retirement at the same time. Is that a fair? Did I do it justice, Sean, or did you?
No, I thought you explained it perfectly, and it was just an interesting way for him to describe retirement. It's almost like, yeah, that shouldn't be your ultimate goal, is to work your life away for the last bit of it. So, yeah, I don't know if it's radical necessarily, but it's interesting.
I think it's radical because most people don't work or live like that. But it's something that I totally subscribe to, and I feel like he was preaching to the choir when I read that part. It's like, beef. And to be clear to the audience, this isn't about being financially irresponsible now so that you can live a certain lifestyle. This isn't about mortgaging the future for Instagram worthy pictures and stunting on your haters today. It's more about like just maintaining a balance where you can live and enjoy the wonders of the world at an affordable price while still being employed and having a nice balance, so that by the time you're in retirement stage, you're not trying to, do everything at once,
Yeah, I think I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but he put it like retirement is like life insurance, and it's you want it there as a cushion, but that's not the goal. That's not what you're trying to get to. So.
Right, and I think that I will say that is radical in the sense that if you've never been exposed to this type of idea and concept, and your foundation is built another way, it's jarring. It's jarring. It's without question. You're like, what? You're telling me I can do this now? And I don't have to wait till I'm past 65 to live. You know what I mean? It can throw you off your rocker. You start making. He even gave a few examples where people give retorts and reasons on why they couldn't do it in regards to price and cost and things of that nature. And I did like how he was able to dispel those objections very easily, in my opinion. Because a lot of it is what I say to people sometimes. I don't go telling people how to live their life, but when certain people say, "Oh, well, I wish I can do this or do that," I'm usually like, "Well, you can. Here's how, and here's the cost. It's not as expensive as you think it would be." I just have to. I feel like we would be doing the audience a very big disservice by not mentioning, at least for me, mentioning that. While a lot of these tips and everything was good, I felt you cannot dismiss the fact that a lot of this is based off American exceptionalism, right? Like using the American dollar to exploit loopholes and opportunities through companies with poorer economics and things of that nature, right?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, that's a part of it.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I was like, so while he's giving all these tips and things of that nature, I'm like, that's cool. And listen, obviously this is the business grind and we talk about business, and part of business is getting things for cheaper or trying to figure out how to manage your costs with margins and things like that. So I don't think that should be a totally new concept to us. But I do feel like there's certain parts where he's just going on his whole manifesto. And I'm like, yeah, a big part missing is the American dollar and exceptionalisms that comes from this, the American economy, and using it to kind of, leverage your businesses in other countries and outsourcing things,
Yeah, he seems to not have no scruples when it comes to achieving his goals.
Right. So. And so then also, I think another aspect, given the good and the bad, at certain points of the book, it really felt super extreme. It felt like a manifesto on how to just hack your life. Like do this, do that, how to read faster, right? He gave a whole breakdown and formula and practice this and read every other word and read to the margin, and you know what I mean? And I don't know. I mean, for me, I like to read. I like to absorb. So I don't really necessarily want to learn how to read faster and skip words. If you're going to tell me I'm going to spend a few extra seconds or minutes because I need to read a few more words per page, personally, I am okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I think you're segueing perfectly into what like my last little note here was that the stuff that kind of didn't make sense. Oh, okay, it made sense. He explained it fine, but it's just something I would never do, right. I guess. And then one of the things was like practice not finishing stuff. Like, do you remember that section? It's like I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I'm already a procrastinator enough. Now you can tell me to feed into that by not finishing stuff. Like, if it's not boring to me, it's like, nah, I should feel obligated to. And he's telling me the opposite. This is me saying my opinion now, but he's basically saying you shouldn't feel obligated to finish something if no one's demanding it from you. It's kind of what he's saying,
right?
And I don't necessarily agree with that. I may be wrong, but I don't necessarily agree with that. So
you know, it's funny. I actually kind of agree with that, but I took it in a different way, and I get it. See, this is where I think it goes into different personalities, right? Because that also is going to determine who this book is for and isn't for. You're able to identify that you're a procrastinator and say, hey, I don't need to be given more leeway to permission to be told, hey, you know what I mean? You know. Hey, you're giving me more permission to stop something I already wasn't trying to do like that, you know, and I get that, but I actually agree with it, and I'm agreeing it from the perspective of me. I tend to have a lot on my plate, and I usually have the mindset of I have to finish it no matter how long it takes or things of that nature, and then in hindsight, you know, upon reflection, I'm like, you know, I could have, you know, I don't really see the bigger benefit and value that it provided me by continuing to stay that path, right? And I think I actually understood. That's how I took it. Like, there's books that I should have been just quit reading, stop reading. I'm like, this book doesn't even interest me, but I'm going to finish it because I'm already 3/4 through, or an article, or, you know, things of that nature. So I that's where I took it from. But, you know, or more so than I didn't. Now, important things, you kind of like, you're going to have to finish. But I took it as those things where we think that we're being productive because we're busy, but you're actually going to be more productive by stopping that because it's wasting time and energy into what you're trying to do. So that's what I took for that.
That's true. That's definitely what he was getting across. Right, so I think I just took it to heart. Like, nah, I'm not feeding into any procrastination. I'm not gonna go down that slippery slope.
You took it as a trap. This is a trap.
Right. But no, the way you explained it, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And I actually, because I mean, in a lot of digital and tech projects that I work on and my daily life, you know, a lot of times the value isn't in what you do. I always say the value isn't in the work that you do. Sometimes there's more value in deciding what not to do prior to the work starting, you know, to be very clear, like, this is what we're not going to do. That saves more time and headaches than saying, oh, well, we just put time towards it and was busy and did something. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's how I took that. So he jumped all over the place, but it was fine. But a few things I was just like, I can't really get jiggy with this, especially becoming a speed reader and hacking your way to reading multiple books. Here's where it got a little contradictory, because if you're telling me I don't want to have to speed read, I rather if it's a book where I have to speed read to kind of figure things out, I'd rather just not read the book. I'd rather not read it at all, which would speak to his other tenet, which is you don't have to finish everything. Right. I'm like, all right.
Okay, so now I'm gonna see how I see the other perspective on this, because I kind of, not that I would ever do that per se, but what I do, and my wife gets at me all the time, is I listen to certain audiobooks like in like triple speed or 2 times speed or whatever. And she's just like, how do you do that? I'm like, I just absorb the information that way. I can hear it and I understand it faster. So I do something to a degree. Like, I think I read this book in like 1.5 or something too. So like the audio version. So it's like, I get what he's saying. If it's something that's not for enjoyment per se, but maybe it's something that's functional that you have to do, like if studying for the MBA or whatever it is, like, then I can see where the hack is, like, you know, is valuable. So
right. So there we go. Good point. So I'm big on ebooks too. I mean, yeah, audiobooks, ebooks. I usually have a mix. I'm usually reading a physical book and an audiobook in conjunction, in tandem. Um, my thing is this: do what works for you, right? If you're reading it at this speed and you're able to, retain and absorb the information and you get good money, great. I mean, your wife is getting on you because she can't, that doesn't work for her, but it seemed like it's working for you. For me, I usually, for the most part, listen to audiobooks at regular speed. It would have to be like a super slow reader or it's going at a dragging pace. And I'm like, I think I can turn it up just another notch. Not to your level of stream. I think you said 3 times. You said you do it 3 times?
I go up to if it's a book, so it's gonna sound crazy.
Oh,
but if
yeah.
it's a book I've read already,
goodness.
With it, I could go up to 3. But if it's something brand new, I would do like 2.5.
Yo, you out here listening? You listening to audiobooks like a Kanye sample? Speed up Alvin and the Chipmunks flow. Okay, but I mean, it works for you. You said you got it. You know.
I mean, yeah, it does work because it's just, especially if it's something I've already read. Like it's just like almost rereading it. It's like bringing that information to my brain. At least that's how I feel.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll give you that. But yeah. So this is another thing. As in regards to the hacking. As I said, it feels like you're hacking your life. All right. He talks a lot about outsourcing, calling these companies, doing this. Getting people from, I think, Philippines and India and other countries like that. And I'm fine if that works for you. You have, I think, the thing to be mindful of when you're outsourcing, not just internationally, even domestically, when you hire people domestically for work, especially now with the uprise of Fiverr and Upwork and things of that nature, you just need to be sure that you're a good manager yourself for your business, right? No matter who you hire at what cost and what skill set, you as the individual are going to need to be a competent manager to manage the work and make sure that everybody's doing it, to make sure that they understand what's being asked and things of that nature. And I think that's something that I think a lot of people might not be totally aware of. And that's going to require some self-awareness. Like, how good are you with managing people and things of that nature, especially if you're going to start hiring people in other countries with time differences and things of that nature. You're really going to have to do a self-awareness check on yourself, just on how capable you are on achieving that.
That's absolutely true because yeah, you're going to have to manage all these freelancers, and that's a good point. He did bring up a lot of outsourcing advice, which I didn't necessarily think about, but yeah, he did do that a lot.
Let's be clear. There's a lot of work that's going to need to go into this to achieve it. It's especially when you think about, in the grand scheme of things, the way you're trying to achieve this and the way you're trying to live is really a break from the quote unquote traditional system and society and how we're usually taught to work and have a career and things of that nature. How did you feel about his strategies or suggestions on how to get a remote lifestyle or remote job? Now, granted, this is dated, and now we're in, COVID, and has rendered a lot of jobs remote. But how did you feel about his approach? We're going to assume that we're going to apply this to probably pre-COVID, obviously the pre-COVID conditions, and how he suggested you create an environment that would allow you to work remotely.
I mean, it sounds good. Mm-hmm. It sounded good. It just goes back to, I don't know if everybody can necessarily apply those to their field. Like me speaking specifically, I'm in the job of video production. You know what I mean? So like, I really just I will say this chapter kind of went in one ear, I went out the other, or this topic because because of COVID, so it's like it's irrelevant. I'm at the most remote I'm ever going to be able to be right now. So you know what I mean? There's no more negotiation room. And then it was also like I don't know if most people can really pull this off. I don't know.
Right. So I think we got to give the audience a little context on what he was suggesting.
Let's do that,
he was suggesting a lot. Right? He was. I don't even have all the steps in front of me, but it was a lot in regards to using sick days during the week to kind of get comfortable in it and working that way and to get your job comfortable like that. So kind of working during the week, one day a week, taking some sick days. positioning yourself, keeping track of what you're doing, and basically you kind of creating a full-on business case on why you should be allowed to work remotely, in regards to productivity, distractions at work. And let's be clear, there are a lot of distractions at work in the office, water cooler talk, stock cubicle drive-bys, and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
Talking, so he gave a lot of tips. He also gave a more of his template responses to, if your manager or your boss is hesitant to allow that to happen and things of that nature. So he gave a whole script to run through. I felt it was a bit extreme personally, but I think that also comes from the fact knowing that I work in a space that's very digital and forward in regards to technology, and all I really need is a laptop and a Wi-Fi to do what I need. So it's kind of like incredulous that you would have to do all of that to make a case, but it is the case. And I also know very early in my career, in hindsight, having to go into the office for doing work that in theory could have been done at home, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
So it's not for me to say, okay, this is whack or whatever, but it just seemed a bit much to get your boss to allow 1 or 2 days remote, let alone a remote job altogether. It's probably, I guess the best way I can say is it was appropriate for 2007. I can't see a person having to go through all these damn steps in 2021.
No.
Yeah. No. So yeah. And then I thought, I think for me, a big key takeaway was the money and time. And I think, there's a difference between a person earning more, right? But the value of their time and money is not the same, right? Like a lawyer could be making 2 to 3 times more than me, but if that same lawyer is working 100 hours a week and literally just going to the office and back home and has no time to enjoy life and what has been, the beauty of Earth and what's around us, are they really richer than me?
Yeah, and that was like his spiel on I guess relative income, yeah, right. And then just how much when you break it down to hourly, right? If you're working 13 hours for that, 12, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever the numbers you want to use, but what is the value of your time versus the money you're getting for it.
And so, I would say that is something that I also have subscribed to for a while at this point on a personal level. Like, it took me a while to get there, and I still grind and do all that, but being more strategic with how I grind and where I grind and the money in general, right? Like at what point, what is enough, and what are you doing it for, right? So, definitely don't concern yourself with competing with, people in different professions and things of that nature, or even business. Really I think it's about really being clear on doing what works for you, knowing your number, knowing the type of lifestyle you want to live, and then moving accordingly, as opposed to just living how, everybody else moves or has been taught to move,
Yeah, and not, being confined by the constructs that have been built for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not really to benefit you per se. It's to benefit the workforce, as you put it. So
right.
Just realizing that, how you can move outside of those boundaries.
Mm-hmm. There was a story or anecdotal story in the book, which if you want to say probably one of the biggest things I took away from this book, right? Was one, the story of the guy, the Harvard MBA, who was in Mexico, and he connected with this fisherman, and the story, I'm obviously probably not going to tell the story right, but the gist is this: he met the fisherman, and asked him, what does he do after he finished fishing? And essentially the guy was like, I have enough to feed. I'm done for the day. I go with my family. I play with my kids. I go hang out with my friends, and I enjoy life when I'm not fishing and serving you. And the guy was like, oh, well, I can, why not? You can blow this up into a bigger business and have extra. And the guy was like, I don't really need extra fish, and I don't need to. I have enough, right? He was more or less saying, I have enough. And the guy was like, oh, I'm a Harvard MBA. You don't know. We can do this. We can grow the business. We can, you can come to New York and set up shop and office. And then after X amount of years, we can go on IPO and you'll be a millionaire and you'll be able to do all of this stuff, right? And at each step, the guy was like, okay, and then what happens? It's like, well, then you go on IPO and then what happens and this and that. And the guy asked the Harvard MBA, he said, well, how long would this take? He said about 20 to 25 years. And he said, and then after this 20 to 25 years, what happens? What happens to me and my business? He said, well, then you get to go and hang out with your friends and your kids. Basically, you come full circle. You spend 25 years doing all this stuff to be able to do what you're doing literally right now. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yes, this dude is spitting right here. So I was like, it resonated with me. That's right about now, personally, where I'm at in life. That's kind of where I'm at. Like there is a way to enjoy both, have a balance in life and business and all of that type of stuff without waiting 20, 25 years, 30 years down the road. And that to me really stuck out. So that kudos on that.
Yeah, I agree. That was definitely a good one.
That's really a lot of the key points and takeaways. So I don't know. For me, I enjoyed it. I did feel like some parts was a little bit extreme and radical, as you said. It's more about, I don't know if, like we said, not necessarily a quote unquote business book, more like a self-help book to kind of help craft your life the way you want it to be. But it can definitely lend itself to business and how you run your business as an entrepreneur and solopreneur. So a lot of good gems here. You just kind of have to take what's relevant to you and discard the other stuff that isn't, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Take what you can use. Yeah.
All right. Like I would say one last thing, well, not one last thing, but another note. I really say that this book is kind of like, it could be called How to Hack Your Life, right? And at a certain point, I think, and it's just personally, certain life experiences I don't necessarily want to hack, right? I just want to experience it. I don't really want the shortcut to it. And I think for certain people, it's going to be really up to them to decide. But, he talked about, he hacked a karate tournament, kickboxing tournament, right? And I was like, this is ridiculous for me. Like, he won a kickboxing tournament. He did some extreme measures. He lost a lot of weight and won in a short amount of time. And then also he won without really knowing much kickboxing or karate based off technicalities. I think he was just he was pushing everybody out the ring or something like that, which technically he would make him the winner of the matches, but it didn't earn him any style points or respect among the judges and things like that. And I get the idea and the message that he's trying to convey, but I think for me, if I'm going to do certain things, I do want to do it a little bit more thoroughly. But I do get the sentiment in general what he was trying to present to the audience.
Yeah, I get the sentiment, but I'm on board with you. I want to get the value out of the task, not just the ribbon at the end.
Right.
So.
Indeed. Okay, cool. So with that being said, I don't know if I got your answer or not, but did you say that you would recommend this?
I didn't. Yeah, I don't think I answered, but no. Honestly, I'm gonna steal your answer. No, only and take a little bit of it at least. Okay. No, I wouldn't really recommend it. I would recommend certain chapters and certain parts and certain advice from it to people, but the whole book I think is a bit much for somebody to take on, and because you're not gonna be able to do all this stuff. So your average person would be like, I can't do all of it, so I'm not gonna do any of it. So it's like, but if you take it in like apply what works to you, and then yes,
right,
do that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, it's not this ain't for everybody. We read the book to tell you if you need to or not. If you have some time and you definitely I would say if you're open to some real radical ideas and changes, yeah, easily go for it. If you think that you're more on the traditional side of things, especially in how you want to approach life and business and your career, might not be for you. You can still read it, but I would be very surprised if someone read this at least on first read and really started implementing things like tomorrow, because it really takes a lot for you to kind of digest that and accept what's being presented to you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And craft your own versions of his templates.
Right.
It's going to take you a while.
Oh, one last thing about this book. You will not have a 4-hour work week after reading this book. That's not going to happen.
No guarantee. There's no, what do we call that?
No
money back guarantee.
No money back guarantee. You'll read this book. I think you'll read this book and leave with a better understanding of how to maybe manage your life more efficiently and your work and your career more efficiently. But it doesn't. You're not going to get to a quote unquote 4-hour work week. I don't even think that's really possible. But obviously, with marketing and titles, this is what got people enticed. What I think what will happen is you'll realize that you can get a lot of your time back for more. I want to say leisurely, but not even leisurely, just getting more time back and deciding what you want to do with that additional time outside of working and doing, mundane, smaller tasks that eats up a lot of our time while we're here.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. So that's a wrap on this week's episode about the 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss and some key takeaways we got from reading the book. Hopefully this episode was helpful to you as you embark on designing your life and your business. If you have a question you would like us to answer on the show, shoot us a message on any of our social media channels or shoot us an email at questions@businessgrindshow.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe and share on Spotify and iTunes. See you again soon. In the meantime, keep grinding.
The Business Grind is for entertainment purposes. Opinions expressed are those solely of the host and guests. Please consult with a professional and exercise discretion before engaging in any business endeavors.
I'm out here on the grind. I'm out here on the grind.